are a blended family.
We 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 are a blended family.
We're a blended family.
We are a blended family.
We are a blended family.
We are a blended family.
And we are a blended family. Hi, we're Doctors Larry and Carol Snap. We're glad to have you with us today, this afternoon here in Phoenix, Arizona.
Welcome, everybody. We're Blended Families, week 7 of 12. We're partnering with ChristianLivingRadio.com. They upload the audio, and we're going live on Facebook, but we're also recording the audio separately. And then I upload that to these guys, and they put it out on their web radio. And they also upload it to iHeartRadio. So it's available on the app. That just started a few weeks ago. So they're getting our stuff out there on the iHeartRadio app as well. Resources are available on blendedfamiliesministry.org. And we also update that from time to time about various events that are taking place. So, anyway, into the study. This one is step parenting skills. It's really more about the blessings of being a step parent. The next two chapters are more about the dark side. So this is the force, and the next ones are the dark side. Right? Okay, so step parenting skills, the blessings, we'll talk about those when I get into all the different scriptures over here. But I always like to start out with some examples of biblical step parents. Occasionally we say something about blended families, and we get one of these. Oh, we're not blended. Like it's a bad thing, right? Well, obviously one of the most famous step-parents is Joseph, of Joseph and Mary. Joseph was a stepdad to Jesus. Okay? The real father was the Holy Spirit. Joseph was the dad. Okay? And I like to kind of make a distinction between mother and father versus mom and dad, just for the purposes of the class. Mother and father are the biological people, and mom and dad are the ones that actually do the parenting. Now, they can be both, right? But in blended families, there's usually one that's a biological and one that's not. That's why it's blended, right? But so Joseph is one of the more famous ones. We also have Mordecai, who was the uncle to Esther. He finished raising her after her parents were killed. So he didn't really adopt her, but he was an uncle. He was already family. So he finished raising her as his own child. And then we have Pharaoh's daughter. She raised Moses in the palace of the Pharaoh as her own son, right? So Moses basically was raised as royalty, right? Now, it's unfortunate that the Pharaoh had, because the Hebrews were kind of making a lot of noise and raising their voices against him and different things like that, he put a thing out to kill all the newborn male babies. Anyway, so the mother raised him until he was 3 months old or something, and then this thing was put out there, so she put him in a little basket and sent him down the river. And the daughter was, she had her maids out there and everything, and I don't know if she was taking a bath or what, but anyway, she's down by the riverside, and this little basket came along and got hung up in the reeds and everything, and somebody heard Moses crying, and they went and fetched him, and Pharaoh's daughter said, okay, I'm going to take him and raise him as my own. son. And so she called him Moses because he was taken out of the water. That was where he got his name. You Roger? Okay, so we've got Joseph, the stepdad to Jesus. Yeah, I spelled that right. Mordecai, Pharaoh's daughter. There were so many different blended families back in, especially the Old Testament. I mean, multiple wives and all this kind of stuff going on. And practically everybody was a blended family in some way.
Well, and back then too, when they got killed in the army or whatever war they were fighting, the younger brother was to take on the wife of the older brother. He was to step in to finish raising his brother's children to keep it all within the same family. So, yeah, that's been going on for a long, long time.
Right. So it's, there are some people that really almost get offended by being considered a blended family, but you look back in, especially the Old Testament, there's so many examples of people that just stepped up to be a parent. And, family was important, like you said. They kept mostly in the family, but there's really nothing wrong with being a step parent. It's really more of a technical term. You're just really a parent to somebody else's kid. We don't like to use step. Some friends of ours said the only step in this household is the one that outside the door. You step up to get in the house. That's the only step in the place.
Right.
So it's so much of this is an attitude. Children are a gift from God. So is your spouse. The difference is God wants his kids back. He can keep your spouse.
No, that's Larry's version of the Bible. It does not say that, Larry. He always said you can keep your spouse.
Well,
Not what he said.
it's true.
No, that's not.
I got
what
proof.
He said.
Whose side are you on?
Your side.
My side? Okay.
That's the right answer.
That's the right side.
That's all right.
And it's fun because Carol always gives me a hard time on this one, but
Yeah, I got to stick up for the women.
well,
Yeah.
you look at Job.
That's one instance.
That's all it takes. That's all you need. But Satan was talking to God, and he says, what? And God's like, have you considered Job? He's one of my guys. Saying, well, yeah, but you don't let me touch him. It's no wonder he loves you. So, well, okay, go ahead. Just don't kill him. So Satan comes in and he kills all of his livestock, and he ends up killing all of his children, and the property is destroyed, and all this stuff. And it's like, and then he gets all these boils and everything. So he's hurting, and his friends come along and he must have sinned pretty bad for God to do this to you. Well, God allowed Satan to do this stuff, right? But ultimately, Job kept his faith, and even though his wife said, curse God and die, now that's the point. Satan didn't do anything to his wife because they were one flesh in God's eyes, right? So Satan had no permission from God to do anything to Job or his wife because they were one flesh. And eventually Job got double everything back. He got like another 10 kids. I mean, he had 10, they all were killed. He got another 10. So when he ends up in heaven, he's going to have 20 in heaven at some point. But, this is where we get the right mentality, though, to be a parent to whoever. Okay? Children are a gift from God. They don't belong to you. And we'll talk about the pyramid here in a second. But children are a gift from God. So is your spouse. He who finds a wife finds a good thing. Right? Now, the way we look at the pyramid is eventually, because you're supposed to be stewards of God's kids and not owners of your kids, He wants them back. You know, he wants them to choose Him at some point and be one of His kids, right? And you've already been given your gift, and you're supposed to keep your spouse. Okay? Let me turn that just a little. The pyramid over here is what makes a blended family work. Each person, the number one thing here, each person, like we have husband, we have the wife, as they get closer to God themselves, they get closer together. That's why all marriage ministries use this triangle thing. Okay? But you have to have the vertical first. If your vertical is messed up, your horizontal is going to be a mess. It just is.
And the vertical relationship, for those that aren't, because I didn't know that term, is your relationship with God.
This way. Right.
Right.
That's what we're talking about. Vertical relationship is you and God.
Right.
Horizontal is you and everybody else.
Right.
So
you can't have that one if you don't have the vertical.
But whatever you have horizontally, if the vertical is messed up, the horizontal is going to be messed up too, because you're going to be a mess.
Right.
Okay? It's eternal. You better spend some time figuring out what you're going to spend eternity doing. Okay? The second most important relationship, this is all relationship stuff. The next one is the marriage. It's you and God, and then it's you and your spouse. Again, this is a covenant till death do us part. That's what God intended it to be. And when we get down to number 3, this is where we start having problems in blended families. And even regular, first-time marriages with kids. That's usually where things kind of get a little screwy. But, like we said, God wants His kids back. You don't own them, God does. So, it's very important to, in your mind, think of your kids as belonging to God. He owns them. He wants them back at some point. And our job is to be a good steward of what He has given us to be a steward of.
Well, that means training them up the way they should go, but it means also to show them how to have a godly marriage and how they should act if at some point when they get married.
Right, exactly. The most important...
Sarah has something she wanted to add.
Well, I was just remembering something my mom used to tell me a long time ago, because my daughter's 18 and my son is 20 now, but my divorce took place like 20 years ago, or 17 years ago. And my kids were 3 and 5, and their dad lived out of state. And the law ruled that they could fly over by themselves with a flight attendant watching over them.
Wow.
And I said, no, I can't do that. So I went with them back and forth for like a year and a half, and then I couldn't afford it anymore.
Right.
And so my mom just said, just like Moses' mom had to put him on the river and just trust the Lord. Right. And I was looking at how Moses was discovered by his stepmom,
right.
Pharaoh's daughter.
Mm-hmm.
That just really stood out to me, how we just have to trust the Lord. And putting your baby down the river with the crocodiles and everything.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, especially in the Nile.
It was scary.
Yeah.
It really was.
Sure. Still too young. Very young, yeah.
Just a few months older.
Yeah.
We did the same thing with Michelle when we moved to Denver, Colorado, and her dad was in Oklahoma. And Larry worked for the airline so she could fly free if there was space available. But she was 6 years old. And they said, well, but it's a direct flight. I said, I don't care. She's on the plane for like 2.5, 3 hours. But we did do it. Our older daughter was there in Oklahoma, and my sister, and they met her. But that was, oh my God, 6 years old on the plane by himself.
So, as you were saying, one of the main things about a marriage is to be able to, besides the blessing of just having a relationship with someone, like for the rest of your life, it's if you have children, your job is to show the children how to do marriage from God's perspective, right? So there are some responsibilities at this level when there are children involved, but the biggest thing here with the parent-child is, in a blended family type situation, is that ownership versus stewardship thing. Because if you think they're your kids, they're your property, you can't help but put them
Higher.
up here at like 1.5.
And that's not showing the kids what a good marriage is.
Well,
That's-
it messes everything up. It messes you up with your spouse. It messes them up because now they think they're all that in a bag of chips.
right. 2 bags of
Right?
chips.
Yeah, maybe. The family size bag.
Yeah. Yeah.
But this is where things really get messed up. We have seen so many couples who have been counselors for 15 years. And this is kind of where the pyramid came from, was all those couples that we talked to, they were doing the same stuff.
Yeah.
It's like there's 5 mistakes everybody makes. It's not like there's 500 different things that people pick from. There's like 5 or 6, and everybody does those.
Right.
So that's kind of where this came from. But the parenting issues in a blended family are what causes the most demises. Because it's disagreement about the parenting, the style, So we've talked earlier in the class about whose normal is normal, right? Just because you have a normal doesn't make it right. We talked about the chef that wanted to train his wife how to chop
His way.
his way.
Yeah, do it
because
his
he was
way.
a chef.
Her way was wrong.
And she just couldn't quite catch it. Well, he's right-handed, she's left-handed. She couldn't use the knife with the right hand.
There's no way she could ever do it.
That well, okay? You have to have a little room to wiggle in there. So the main thing here is you're bringing a normal in here, they're bringing a normal in here, but Jesus has a normal that we're supposed to become. And that's what our goal should be. This is a goal. It's not like snap your fingers, boom, this is the end of story. This is the goal, and part of this is understanding that this is the goal. This is where you should be working towards, trying to find agreement in these things, right? But you have to spend time on your own in the vertical so that you can make the marriage work the way it's supposed to. When the marriage is strong, you now have the power and authority to be parents. If these are messed up, you're basically going to be in disagreement, and you have no authority, you have no power to do anything.
Right.
The inmates are running the asylum.
Which is the kids.
The kids. Yeah. And when the kids are like 3, they know if they're in charge or you are. They figure it out real quick.
Yep.
Okay? But again, God first, spouse second, then the kids, with the understanding that you don't own them, you're a steward, and like Carol said, you're supposed to train them up in the way they should go. So and every kid's different. It's not, well, I almost was the quarterback in high school, so you need to be the quarterback. That's not how that works. You have to take the time to learn your kid, learn God's kid, so that you know what the kid's gifts are, so that you can help him use them. And if the parenting isn't a problem, the X's are. So that's one reason blended families fail at a much higher rate than even first marriages.
And faster.
Quicker, more often. It's like a second, if a first marriage is 50-50, a second marriage it's like 2 out of 3 fail. And a third one, it's 3 out of 4. So it's like 50%, 60, 75, and after so many, it's like so easy to just throw one away, you don't even think about it. So the parenting is something that the spouses, the parents need to be in agreement on. Again, taking their different normals, focusing more on the first relationship and using the Bible to figure out, what am I really supposed to do with these kids? And then because you have to prepare them to be given back to God. That's kind of the thing that we're supposed to be doing. But, in a blended family, we have ex-spouses, ex-in-laws, we have outlaws, and they're always trying to put influence on you. They want to manage you. Because they were probably managing you when you were married to them.
Well, they want to help, is what they said.
Yeah. Some
Make
want to
sure
help.
you don't make another mistake.
Some want to help, some
you.
just want to destroy you.
Yeah.
There's very vindictive exes out there. But, so you have to have healthy boundaries. We've talked before about how because you have used the law through divorce to break what was to be a covenant, you've kind of taken yourself out from under grace and put yourself back under the law. The law, the courts are dictating, visitation, alimony, all that kind of stuff, right? At least until the children are 18. You may be stuck with alimony much longer than that. But it's all because of the law, right? But you got to have some boundaries there. Again, part of the step parenting is making sure your marriage now is the most important one, right? If there is an ex, communication should be mostly like on a speakerphone. You want to make sure that you, as one flesh,
Right.
are managing the expectations of a former spouse and not vice versa. You don't jump just because they say jump. You say, well, I can't talk right now, but we will get back to you. It's we, it's us.
Yep.
Let us talk about it and we will get back to you. It causes problems when the exes are just talking amongst themselves, because then the new spouse kind of feels like something's going on behind the screen, So keep it all out in the open, make sure everybody's on the same page in this marriage, because this is the one that matters, right? Stuff happens, marriages don't work out, some really weren't meant to be. God was not in the middle of it or anything, it was not considered. And then the bottom here is we have the jobs and ministry. Ministry is always last. You have to have your house in order, you have to have your family provided for, and then if there's anything left, that's where the ministry comes in. It's a job. Some people actually get paid to do ministry. Awesome. But they still have to have their house in order. And if you're doing any kind of ministry, your spouse should be the first ministry above any other ministry. Making sure that your spouse, which gets us back up here, and we just reinforce everything. Okay?
I would like to add that for the singles that are listening and singles that are here and dating couples that are here, engaged couples that are here, this is a goal. This is what you should be striving for. It does not happen overnight. It is a process, but to be headed towards that process,
Right.
that's the way they need to go. Now, in a new blended family, we suggest, where there's kids involved, that you sit down with your spouse and come up with some rules and consequences for those rules, age appropriate to the kids, because a 5-year-old is not going to be given the same consequence as a 10-year-old. But you have to be in agreement with those rules that you're going to come up with for those kids and the consequences. So the kids cannot play games against one another. And then you write them out and you have them, especially the older ones, sign it. So they can't say, well, I didn't know that was a rule. Would you just add that this week? Because I know the games they'll play. But you both have to be in agreement with what those rules and consequences are going to be, and you have to deliver them to the kids at the same time. Not because these are your kids, you tell them, or because they're my kids, I'm going to tell them. No, you both got to be together delivering, this is the way things are here. This is our house. This is our rules. This is how it's going to be. This is what we've come up with. But the first time they do something wrong, you give them a pass. Because this is something new you've initiated, so you've got to give them a pass. Second time is a little different. And then again, it would go age appropriate too. If they're older and they do something wrong, you may not want to give them a pass because they had maybe been messing up before. But the real secret is to be in agreement ahead of time, the both of you, and delivering it at the same time. And we say that's important because we've had many couples we've talked to do this, and one delivers it, well, she's the mom, so I had her do it. So they don't respect him because he wasn't there when the rules were said. You can't do that. You both have to be there. And you both have to know that, okay, if my son messes up and my new husband is there, he's going to do this consequence for him. And I know that you got to know that each other's going to do what and only what you guys have agreed on. Because there's a lot of friction there that comes up when you don't. But they have to know too, okay, well, if I mess up, that's the rule, and he's going to make sure I do that, or she's going to make sure I do whatever. But you have to be in agreement on everything. But you showing those kids you both are authority, and you're both on the same page with whatever you're stating in front of those kids. Because they will play you. It's their game. Under 3, like Larry said, they'll figure out real quick if they're in charge or you're in charge. And under 10, they pretty well blend in pretty good. They want to be part of a new family. Over 10, you will have conflict. But if you do it right, and let them know, not I'm the new person here, so you're going to do it my way. That is not the way. You just say, okay, I'm the new person here. Tell me about you. What do you like to do? And go do something with that person. Larry is a new stepdad. Larry'd never been married before. He marries me. He's an instant stepdad to 3 kids.
Two teenagers.
2 teenagers and a 4-year-old. A 15-year-old son, 17-year-old daughter, and a 4-year-old daughter. And he said to my 15-year-old son, what do you like to do? My son said, I like to play basketball, and I like music. I like to do the guitars. So guess what they did? He didn't make them come down to his level. He went to their level. And the same with some of the new stepmoms. Well, I've never been a stepmom. What do I do with this daughter that's being a little jerk to me? Well, you know what? Ask her to go out to lunch or something. Maybe go to a movie. Get to know her. And I know we did a big conference out in California, and there was a couple that had been married 2 years, and his first wife died. And the new wife was talking to me, and she says, well, I have a 16-year-old stepdaughter that's a pain in you know what. And she has me make her lunch all the time, and she does this and she does that. And I said, really? I said, well, how long has the mom been dead? And the mom had been, I think the little girl was less than 5 years old when the mom first died. And so I said to her, do you think anybody ever showed her how to make her own lunch? She said, I never thought of that. I never thought of that. Well, instead of thinking she's a thorn in your side, you have to teach her. Did you ever ask her? She said, no, I didn't. You're absolutely right. Get to know these kids. They want to belong. They want to be a family. But they got to know that you care about them too. You're not trying to take the place of a mom or a dad. You're just trying to be an extra person there to care for them and to help them get their feet on the ground the way they should be. But those things don't happen overnight. It takes time. I'm going to tell you, it really takes time. Just one mom.
Part of the thing about being a step-parent is just looking at it as an opportunity to be a very positive influence in a kid's life.
Teachable moments, right.
You know, I mean, that's the beauty of being a parent,
Yeah.
whether it's your kid or somebody else's, is to be the positive influence. You know, we're all Christians here, and part of being a Christian is to be a blessing to others, right? So part of being a step-parent is to be a blessing to God's kids. Again, if you're looking at it as a stewardship thing, not an ownership thing, it really changes the way you behave about the kids. So,
But if you're showing disrespect to each other, the kids are not going to respect either one of you either.
right. Yeah, and part of the reason we have the pyramid there is because we want the parents to understand that when they do things to reinforce the importance of the marriage relationship, more often than not, the kids come along because there's a lot less stress. There's a lot less fighting going on. You know, there's things are more normal. Sorry.
I think over time, too, the exes, it may take years, but once they see that you're a team and that you can't break through that, they kind of come around. And they're like, well, this is the way it is. You know, when I'm talking to my spouse, my ex-spouse, I'm going to be talking to the stepdad or the stepmom as well.
Sure.
And it just gets easier over time.
Yeah.
That's what we've seen over the years is when the husband and the new husband-wife team see themselves as a team, they can handle the exes much better. One of our other couples have a great testimony on how this kind of works is they both had several kids. There's like 6 or 7 of them between the two of them.
No, I think it was 8.
Austin and Christina.
Yeah, about 8.
I don't know. A whole bunch.
8.
More than a basketball team.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was 8.
But every time the wife had to deal with her ex, she'd get all bent out of shape. Both of them would get upset. Right? Her and the ex, they'd be like this. And then when he would get home and they'd be able to talk, she would do this with him because she was still all messed up, right? Very emotional and upset and everything about what was going on, and the ex wasn't being cooperative, and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, after a while, he's like, did you talk to your spouse, your ex today? Yeah. Oh, okay.
He knew where the anger was coming from.
So, it took him a little while to kind of figure out that was the pattern, that every time she had to deal with him, he would end up in an argument with her about stuff. Okay, so then he figured out that if he could talk to her before she talked to him, the ex, he could help her talk to him the way he needed to be talked to.
Guy to guy.
Right? More of a guy to guy thing. Right. Now, he didn't actually talk to the guy, but he said, okay, you want to tell him this? Okay, say it like this. Like a guy would. Right? So I know how he's going to hear it. Because if you told me that, here's what I would think. Right? So whenever they had to discuss anything with their exes, they both had exes, she would help him with how to talk to her,
His ex, yeah.
and it worked great. And he would talk to her, help her talk to him, and he was like nice as pie. Very agreeable. Oh, yeah, okay, no problem.
Well, the first time she did that, she said, I don't believe it. I do not believe it. I said it exactly how you told me to tell him. And he said, okay. No argument, no yelling, nothing. I cannot believe it. And so the first time he himself tried it with his ex, after he and his wife had talked, he said the same thing. He said, I can't believe it. And they were explaining all this to us, and we said, guy to guy goes good, girl to girl is good. That's awesome that you guys figured that out. That's great. But yeah.
So that's one reason when we counsel, it's either couple to couple or guy to guy and girl to girl.
Yeah.
We never switch around.
Yeah, you can't. We misinterpret things.
Well, it doesn't look good for one thing, but we pink to blue, blue to pink, purple. Nobody speaks purple.
And doesn't work.
Right? So it just gets to be a mess.
Yep.
Okay. Carol mentioned this a little bit ago. There's, the whole blended family thing is basically yours, mine, and ours.
Right.
Right? But there has to be the one set of rules. She's been there, done that, different sets of rules, doesn't work.
Yeah.
These are our kids, and there's one set of rules. Those are my kids from way back when or something. And I treat them different than your kids. And then there's our kid. That's another set of rules. It doesn't work.
And I lived with that for 6 years. Yours, mine, and our rules. It doesn't work.
And one of the things that keeps coming up is, when the kid has to go back and forth from one house to another, you have your rules, and they may not have any rules at the other house. And the kid has to go back and forth, right? And he loves it over there because he has no rules.
Right.
And he hates it at your place because there's rules. What do you do with that? Well, tough.
Pray.
That's the way it is.
You pray.
This is our house. This is our rules. And, this is our expectations. You have to let them know what your expectations are. Because that's where everybody gets in trouble. They never say anything about what they expect. And then nothing happens and the expectations are not met, and then you get upset. And then the other person's like, what? Oh, that's what you meant? That's what you wanted? Oh, well, you didn't say so.
Right.
What if the other family has so many sets of rules that there's no way you could carry them over to your house or even come close?
Well, that's what we're talking about. They have their deal.
Yep.
That's on them. You have a house full of biblical, scriptural rules. You have grace. You have mercy, love.
Because that's not there. Grace and love aren't at that house.
Right. So you make sure you do, and trust that God will open that the child's eyes to the difference. They're not that stupid. They can kind of figure that out.
But the kid struggled to go back to his other.
Sure.
Well, sure.
Well, yeah.
Sure they do.
If you're full of grace and mercy and the love of God in your house, and they're not, and there is no grace, it's like all legal, they call that, where it's legalistic. Who wants that?
But Roger, they know the difference. And we don't get anywhere putting the X's down. Those kids are smart enough; they'll figure it out themselves.
I don't. I tell him, listen to your mom.
Right.
This is what I told him in the past. I said, you gotta play the game.
Right.
Because he's old enough to say you gotta play the game.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But he still, somehow she felt he was just not, when he came back from spending a half a day with me or overnight with me, that he was having problems. And so as a result, he no longer gets to see me.
We'll
That's-
pray against that. I'm
that- yeah,
sorry.
we'll
And
lift
by the
you up
way,
on
what
that, but
happens in
that's
this room
her
stays in this
problem.
room here.
I understand.
Please, this is a safe zone.
But
Yeah.
that's where we're dealing with totally two sets of rules, and the kid was struggling to.
Sure. And that's kind of next week when we're talking about the dark side, right? is those kind of things when the kid has to go back and forth, right? And like in your case, you're very limited on the time you get and things like that. A lot of exes are very vindictive,
Right.
and they will use the kid against you,
Yeah.
which is part of the problem with divorce. I mean, that's a consequence. Right? And you, as Christians in your home, need to be, loving, full of grace and mercy, and, speaking about God and His love and grace and mercy, but demonstrating it and all that kind of stuff. And, it's unfortunate, but that's the way it goes when there are that big of a difference between that house and this house. And, when I was a kid, the house I lived in was my house. My parents bought it, but that was my house. And what happens when kids end up going back and forth? It's either mom's house or dad's house.
Yeah.
They don't have one. They just live in a house, but it's not their house. And somebody I used to work with mentioned that one time, and it just really hit me that the kid left a backpack at dad's house, right? And see, where I lived, that was my house. Oh, that's kind of a big deal. The kid doesn't have a house that's theirs. They might have a room, but they don't have a house. They don't have an address, kind of thing. Carol mentioned it. She said 10. I use 12 usually. But like she said, the younger the kids, the more likely they are to be interested in blending. The younger, they want to be part of something. The security is there when they're part of something. But when they get older, especially up in the 10 to 12, 13, 14, and the teens, they would rather have a mind of their own.
Right.
They think they know everything. You know nothing. You're old.
Well, we did the same when we were that age.
Of course we did. That's because back then we knew everything.
Yeah. Teenagers know it.
Now that we're older, we know that we didn't know diddly squat. But they think they know everything, and I think it's because of all the technology. They're really good at it, and we're not so much. That's kind of why they think we're stupid. But
These kids, even 5 years old, know stuff on the phone.
they don't have any common
that
sense.
I couldn't even do.
They're very technically savvy, but they have no common sense. They really have no foundation, right? So, over 12, they are in that process of becoming an individual. So they're not that interested in being part of this new thing
Yep.
that you're getting into. This is your deal. I don't want to be part of that. That's you. And so it's tougher. It's tougher. Now, you guys got a whole bunch of teenagers.
Yes, we do.
And it's been a piece of cake, right?
No, it's not.
No. Okay. Well, there you go. I inherited 2 and a 4-year-old. Now, obviously, there was no way I was going to be dad to the old ones. The little one, yeah. I figured at least I had a shot. But, yeah, so, the older ones, they just call me Larry. The younger one calls me Dad, which is cool.
To this day.
Still, yeah. Called me yesterday, hey Dad, happy birthday,
She's 42.
love you. Yeah, that was cool. But the teenage years are going to be a challenge. They are stretching their wings, and now you guys just got married recently, right?
5 months.
5 months ago?
Ooh,
And there's a teenager.
newbies.
14-year-old boy and a 16-year-old girl.
Oh, 2 of them.
Oh.
Ooh.
Congratulations.
One of each. But, this is where The pyramid is extremely
Yes.
important.
That they see you two together as
Because-
the one.
They see the pyramid, they don't agree with that at all. They think they should be the two.
Oh,
Well,
sure.
that's their
Of
fault.
course.
It's not their fault. That's their problem. Okay. Now we had a couple in a class years ago. Can you come?
Oh, I didn't know that was the thing you were talking about.
Yeah, that thing.
Can you make sure?
It's
we're
fine.
in that picture?
But we were talking about these things, and now they each had one kid,
Yep.
and they were high school sweethearts, and their folks wanted
them
to
apart.
keep them apart, and so they ended up marrying different people. They each had a kid. She had a daughter. He had a son. Well, at like a 10-year reunion, they met and ended up getting married.
Yeah, because they
But-
both got divorced. Their marriages.
Yeah, the son, I think he was slightly younger, but they were pretty close in age. The daughter was an angel, of course. The son was one of these. He had horns, and he was just giving him fits. And again, it was the dad had the son on the weekends, and he spent the weeks.
No, it's the other way around. The
Oh.
mom had them on the weekends.
Oh, okay.
He had them. They had them on the.
It was a shared thing, a weekend and a week, weekdays.
a lot
kind of
about
thing.
like what Roger's talking
Yeah,
about.
yeah. But anyway, the kid, the son was giving them fits because he had no rules at his mom's.
On the weekends.
And these guys were Christians, and they wanted Christian principles and everything. And when it was time, getting close to the time, like a day or two before he would go back to his mom's. Well, no, he's only there for a weekend, right? But it would take him a while when he first came, like on a Friday. It'd be late Saturday before it's like, oh yeah, I'm at my dad's. To where he would like, oh yeah, there's rules.
Well, when he would come back on the weekends, it was with the mom, and she had no rules. When he'd come back, like on a Sunday night or Monday morning, that's when it'd take him a couple days to realize, oh yeah,
right.
this is the house where they got the rules.
And then like by Thursday, he's like really looking forward to not having rules.
Yeah, because the next day he
Right,
gets to go again.
I just got to get through Thursday, and then I'm free to go, right? And so that when it was time to get the son back, the dad was like, he's going to be a pain in the butt, the PETA, pain in the pain in the what. But I think they were doing some counseling in our house, and he's like, yeah, well, I got to go pick up my son here in a couple hours, and I'm really not looking forward to it because he's going to be a pain. And I'm like, well, what do you usually tell him when you go get him? And he's like, well, how did you mess up this weekend? Right? He was setting him up to be negative, right? Well, one of the big thing, and the reason I wanted Carol up here, they got the pyramid, right? It's like, okay, we love God first, and now we love each other, and then the kids. And that was, the kid was trying to push himself up in there. So they had one of those staircase things where it's up a few and a landing, and then you go up the rest of the way and all that. So they called him over, and they said, and they were on the landing. Okay. Now, he said, okay, come on up here, son. And he got up there, and he said, I want you to stand like right here.
In between them.
Right here.
Which is what he had been doing, coming in between when he would cause his little fits or whatever. He would definitely be in between them. It would cause a lot of friction between the both of them.
So he said, now this is where you have been. Right here. In between us. Okay. Now I need you to go down on the floor, down there, a few steps down. He said, now this is the way it's going to be.
No room.
There's no room in here.
No more.
You're down there. We're up here. There's no room in here. We are one. Right? And then we suggested, he said, hey, it's good to see you. Glad you're back. Be more positive. And things, as far as we know, it's been a while since we've seen him. The kid's probably out of the house by now. He's probably 18.
Oh, at least.
But, I mean, it's 4 or 5 years.
But we said, encourage the kids. Say, hey, I missed you while you were gone. Did you do anything special, or anything you'd like to tell me? But to be positive, not say, okay, well, how'd you screw up this time? Don't say that. Don't do that. You got to love them and show them you love them and that you care about them. Even though there were no rules where she would drink with the kid, let him have kids over to the house and they all drink, party the whole week. He hardly even got any sleep, nothing. And then, of course, when he came home, it was a good Christian home. And, oh, man, I got to do this. And he knew it. And her daughter wasn't helping because she was Miss Perfect. She never did anything wrong. She was all best grades and I don't know. But anyway, that's how they worked it out. And they said when they had him go down and stand at the end of the stairs and he looked up and saw the both of them together, he said even the son went, whoa, because he got the picture. I can't come between them anymore, which is what he tried to do all the time.
And, he'd still try once in a while, not that often, but when you're reinforcing the pyramid, the kids know that, right? You're demonstrating to them how important 1 and 2 are. And they're number 3. Or, well, maybe 2.5. I mean, they're very important, but not that important. They're not more important than you guys. And that's what they need to know, right? So that's why this exists. It's the foundation of this ministry. And like Carol said, that's the goal. That's where we should be striving for. Anytime we counsel with anybody, it's always what's out of order. We'll listen to you talk about what you think your problems are, but as we're listening, it's like, what's out of order? And then we reinforce what the order should be.
And like, I don't want to say names, but the guy on the end was asking about, well, there's so many rules over at this house, and then when the person, my kid comes over here, I'm fighting like a losing battle. Well, you need to pick your time to be quality time and teach him about God like you're supposed to do, and he will be the one to decipher all this later on. But we don't get anywhere smashing the other one, and it proves to them, what a good Christian you are. You're not just talking the talk, you're walking the walk. And that's another thing they want to see too. They want to see you're actually doing what you're telling them life should be.
Yeah, you have to be demonstrating it. You can't just say, do this, and then not do it yourself.
So just pick quality things that your son or your daughter is going to know that when they come with you, this is what we're going to do, and make every minute count. But he will know in his heart how much you love God and you love them, and God knows, and it will work. When it's going to happen, I can't tell you. It's all a different time frame, but just keep doing. Stay the pace.
Yeah. Okay, so I think everybody pretty well, if you have a teenager at home, you get this. Children eventually become adults. That's why over there we're stewards up to like 18 to 25 or somewhere in there, right? You have to give them back, because at some point they become adults, and now your relationship changes. You're still their parent, but now you're both adults, supposedly, and both parties need to behave like one, right? But the whole point there is you give them back to God. Now they're responsible for themselves. It says in the scriptures, we all have to answer for ourselves.
Right.
We don't answer for anybody else. We have to answer for what we do. Okay? So they become adults. Back in the Old Testament days, like 12 years, well, even now, in the Jewish tradition, usually around 12. is when they have bar mitzvahs and bat mitzvahs and all that stuff, whatever it is. So like at 12, then they're like basically
Supposed to be adults, yep.
intellectually mature enough to make their own decisions about that kind of stuff. But children become adults, your relationship changes. Now it's an adult to an adult, not parent to a child. In the court case with a 30-year-old that doesn't want to get out of his parents' basement.
It's been on TV. Did you?
Right?
Yeah, the parents have sued the kid trying to get him evicted.
Yeah, I mean the parents are actually going through the court system to evict their millennial son, right?
He has the basement. He wants to
And
stay
it's
there.
like,
He loves his mom. He
I
wants
need at
to
least
be there.
another 6 months to like get my act together. Yeah, it's crazy. But as a Christian, right? As a Christian parent, your job is to train them up in the way they should go, and then give it back. And something that was a bit of a revelation for me just in the last few months is, and when they are old, they will not depart from it. So what happens between when you give them back and they're old? They'll probably depart. But then when they get old, then they won't. Which is kind of like what happened to me. I got a little bit of that in the beginning, and then I ran away from it, and then when I got old, I came back. Part of being a parent, one of those hard things about being a parent is you can't prevent them from falling. We hate to see our kids hurt. We don't want them to fall down and get hurt. But that's when they learn stuff. If you catch them every time, they don't learn anything. All they learn is you're going to catch them. And then they won't hurt, right? So you can't prevent them from falling. And I just want to go through these scriptures real quick. There's like 3 categories of scriptures here. There's the blessings. There's the parental duties. And you'll see, for the most part, these are all like Proverbs. And then there's a legacy of what happens when you're a good parent. Right? You leave a legacy. Right? Well, I'm not going to read them all. I'll read the scriptures here. People can look them up, read them later. They're in the book. If you got the book, they're in the book. But the blessings, I'll read a couple of them. Psalm 127:3. Lo, children are a heritage of the Lord, and the fruit of the womb is His reward. Children are a blessing. It's a good thing to be a parent. Proverbs 23:24. The father of the righteous shall greatly rejoice, and he that begets a wise child shall have joy of him. So, on the reverse of that, if you have an unrighteous kid, you will not have joy in that kid. It'll be a pain and a drag. It'd be like the kid that lives in the basement. And then children's children are the crown of old men, and the glory of children are their fathers. It is so important to be a good father. Kids need a father. They need a dad. I was very fortunate. I had a great dad. He took me hunting, fishing, played sports, all that guy stuff, right? And even coached Little League for a couple of years, that kind of stuff. Taught me how to, he didn't really say, here, turn this wrench, but I could watch him do stuff like that. He never really taught me so much, but I got to watch him do stuff. I was always the one holding the flashlight. That's kind of what I learned how to do, hold flashlights. But the blessing is when you do a good job.
Yeah.
When you love God and you love what God is doing in your life and you love the children because they're from God, you do a good job of raising them, because you got to give them back. And if you don't do a very good job, you don't hear the well done, my good and faithful servant. think we all want to hear that. Parental duties, again, it's all about teaching and discipline and all that. Proverbs 22:6, Carol mentioned it. Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. And, all these years, I always thought, they really would never depart. If you do it right in the beginning, they never depart. Well, it's when he's old, he won't depart. So it's like everybody comes back. They all depart, but when they're old, they come back. And there's a bunch of, spare the rod, spoil the child. It's hard to do that these days because the kid will call CPS on you. So that's what it says. But the way the culture is today, it's very difficult to really discipline your kids.
Right.
I mean, you can't hardly do anything. Well, a lot of these are, just telling the children to listen to the father's instruction. I mean, as God's kids, that's what we're supposed to do. Listen to our father's instruction. And then we do that with our kids. So that's a bunch of those. That's our duties, is to teach our kids about God. That's our job. And to demonstrate how to do godly marriage. The legacy, like I said, well done, good and faithful servant. That's Matthew 25:21. That's what we want to hear someday. Good job. Not, wow, you really sucked. You don't want to hear that. For the Proverbs 27, a just man walks in his integrity, and his children are blessed after him. So if you're a righteous, upstanding member of the community, you're abiding by God's word, you leave behind a good legacy.
Well, these also are goals, Larry. These are things to strive for.
Yeah, everything.
These don't happen overnight.
No.
These are things to strive for.
But it's about being obedient.
Right.
Here's the instructions.
Yeah.
It's any guys in here actually read the instruction manual for anything?
No, and you don't ask directions when
You
you
just
get
dump the
lost
stuff out of the
anywhere.
box and you just start working on it.
I know.
You ever get anything from IKEA? You ever look at the instructions? No.
I like the acronym for Bible. It's the basic
Instructions for the beginner. Yeah, that's a good one.
We need to wrap it up.
Do you have something, Bob? Okay. Okay, so like I said, most everything in here is Proverbs because that's where all the wisdom is, right? But the memory of the just is blessed, but the name of the wicked shall rot. Again, if you're being obedient, and doing your best to follow the Word of God, and none of us are perfect, obviously. That's why we have Jesus as our Savior. And that's why there's grace and mercy, is because we can't do everything perfectly. But when we have the righteousness of Christ's blood over us, that's all God sees. Now, these are Jesus glasses. Everybody needs a pair. Right? Because this helps you see what's going on in the spiritual realm.
Right.
When you put your Jesus glasses on, right?
Yes.
Right? I got a new pair for my birthday.
Yeah, I got him a new pair.
You need a filter. Most of us just look around in the flesh. We see what we see in the world, but the spiritual realm is where everything's going on, and you need something to help you see that. So, this obviously this is plastic. It doesn't do anything but make things blue, but you get the point. Sometimes you need a really big pair to not let your emotions get away from you.
Don't react.
It's so much about being a Christian is, it's all spiritual warfare. Life, marriage, it's all spiritual warfare. And this is the battlefield right here.
Mind.
So, you take every thought captive, you you think and process through your filter before you get angry, before you speak without thinking, and those kind of things. It's, okay, God, what do you want me to do here?
Well, and I used to say to myself, what would Jesus say and what would Jesus do? Instead of Carol mouthing back, which is what I did for years.
Yeah.
And then I had that new perspective, and it stopped me in my tracks. I couldn't speak. I couldn't do. I mean, I was numb.
You have the Holy Spirit with you all the time.
I was worldly. I was not godly. I was worldly.
So
I had to learn too.
You know, we have to be aware of His presence and then act accordingly. It's when we're not aware of His presence that we just do stuff. You know, we fall into temptation. We believe the lies of the accusations that Satan's, and you know, we can allow the oppression of the enemy to just make us numb. We don't even want to think. We can't move. You know, and that's spiritual warfare. But when you are aware that spiritual warfare is going on, now you can get your armor on and do battle. But you know, like we talked about last week, I think it was, you know, you're a volunteer in the army of God. You know, you didn't get drafted, you've signed up. So there are missions that you're supposed to go on to increase the kingdom. And you know, sometimes some of the battles are pretty tough. Some are easy, some are tough. So, but God is always there. He's promised that He will not leave us nor forsake us. So, you know, if you read the last couple of pages, you know we win. It's already won. So, enjoy. So, yeah, got to wrap it up. This has been Step Parenting Skills, or in other words, the blessings of being a step parent. And I want to thank Christian Living Radio again, ChristianLivingRadio.com. And again, our website is blendedfamiliesministry.org. And thanks for everybody for watching and joining us. And we'll see y'all next week.
Christian Living, Christian Living. Christian Living Radio, spreading the good news of Jesus Christ 24/7. Our goal is to bring you a life-changing word through music and diverse programming, like the one you're listening to now. Pastor Kenyatta Goins is the visionary of Christian Living Radio, and he's dedicated to the idea that Christians should even have a more prominent presence in the marketplaces. Maybe you need prayer for yourself and or your family, maybe for a friend. We'd be privileged to stand in the gap for you. If you're listening to this broadcast, click on the Contact Us tab and send us your prayer request. We'd also like to hear from you if you have something on your mind, or just give us some feedback. We support many ministries, so maybe you'd like to make a one-time or a monthly recurring donation. We believe that when you sow into these ministries, you'll indeed be blessed. And of course, if you sow into this show in particular, we believe that it's a blessing for you, so please consider sponsoring us. There's a special area under the Donate tab where you can send your monetary gift or call 520-812-6363. That's 520-812-6363 to receive more information about sponsorship. Thank you.
Christian Living Radio.